The late mythologist Joseph Campbell, scholar of world religions, once compared our world and this situation with those old sideshows that used to occur outside of the circus before the circus started. You know, the ones where people would pay $1 to go inside and see the bearded lady and the two-headed llama and the half man, half donkey, or whatever they could come up with to get people to spend that dollar. These sideshows were very popular. The only problem was that once people came in, they didn't want to leave, except until, of course, the circus started. But in order to make any money, the organizers had to convince people to go out so that new people could come in. Eventually, someone came up with a great idea. They changed the exit sign above the door where people were supposed to go out, and instead of exit, they called it the grand egress. Now, most people didn't know what that meant. Sounds kind of exciting. Hey, let's go look at that. And people would walk through the door to see the grand egress, and they'd find themselves suddenly outside the tent. After studying hundreds of religions and cultures, Campbell explained that each one has some way of helping people deal with the fact that part of life is death. And in order to deal with the anxiety and the uncertainty of it, religions have all come up with fancy names and exciting and appealing descriptions so that people will not feel so bad about leaving this life. The analogy makes me wonder whether, this life we're living in now is a sideshow or a circus. Sometimes it feels like a little of both. I'll tell you, there are people sitting in this church this morning who believe in their heart of hearts that there is a heaven on the other side of the door we call death. And there are others who believe in reincarnation and that we live many, many lives. And there are others who figure that when we die, we go back into the earth and are recycled like all other parts of the natural process. And since no one knows for sure, we decided a long time ago in this church that instead of fighting or allowing ourselves to be divided by what we don't know and cannot know, that we will come together and unite around what we do know. And one thing we all know is that we need peace and love and help if we're going to make it through this often beautiful, sometimes tragic, but always uncertain world. As for me, I don't claim to know what happens after we die. And I'm hoping it'll be a long, long time before I find out. But I'll admit that when I pray with people who are dying, which I have many occasions to do, I think of people like Penny McElroy and Elmer Bryden and Patricia Duke and Gene Beasley and others who come to mind who've died in the past few years. I have told them, when you get to the other side, if you see my little girl, Sienna, please give her a hug for me and tell her I love her and tell her we miss her and tell her that her mom and Elias and I are doing okay. In those moments, regardless of what we believe or the words we say, in those moments, we hold eternity in our hands. In those eternal moments, the melody beyond the words is that those who have died and those who are dying and those of us who are still alive are inextricably connected in love, in longing, and in life as well as death. In our memorial services in this church, we say a prayer that Tamara borrowed from this morning. We say, we are surrounded by a mighty cloud of witnesses, by saints and prophets and aged men and gracious women and little children. All those most dear who, though they be invisible to our outward eyes, yet speak within our hearts of love and peace and truth. And there's a painting outside the door of our sanctuary that helps to describe what this church is about. When you look at it, you can see two oak leaves. One is beautifully brown and dry, and it rests on a book, and it represents that mighty cloud of people who, having walked with us in this life, have gone before us. They are still in the picture that describes us because they are always with us and never forgotten. And we know that we stand upon their shoulders and their lives. Our ancestors, they continue to bless us. And we feel the warmth of their spirits still upon us. And then there's another oak leaf, and that one is green and shiny. And it's alive. It represents life. It represents all of us who are alive. And when you look, you'll see that the green leaf is falling through the air. The artist made it falling to remind us of our mortality, to remind us that life is fleeting and precious, in hopes that by reminding us that we won't live forever, that we will choose to use the time that we have upon this earth to sow seeds of unity and love and peace among the human family. I don't know about you, but when it comes to be my time to die, I want to look back upon my life and say that I loved well, that I lived with integrity, and that I made some little difference that may help create a more positive future for those who will come after. And that's one of the reasons that I'm part of this church. For me, joining a church is part of an admission that life and death together are more than I can deal with alone. The great psychologist Carl Jung wrote that everyone has to come to a point of sacrificing pride and confessing that they are fallible and human. Until we can do this, we are really cut off from humanity. And it's pretty cold and lonely out there among the saints. Remember, this is All Souls Church, not All Saints Church. Thank God. I couldn't be the minister of all saints. The church is the only institution I know of that has the power to help us face loss and dying and to live our days upon this earth as if they were few. The other institutions and agencies of our society do not have much to offer to this anxiety. For me, it boils down to three things. All life is change. We're here on this earth to learn to love, and we need one another. Every moment of our lives is change. Change means that one thing has died and something new is born. Every moment. Every second of our lives involves something dying or ending and something new being born. And how we deal with these little deaths, if you will, is what prepares us for the big death at the end of life. How well we learn to navigate change now will impact how well we feel when we come to die.